Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. I, 28F, found out that my husband, 29M, told his coworkers that I'm his sister. What should I do? Please help. My husband, let's call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, and we don't have kids. We have a really healthy relationship and good communication. Both of us are pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a big accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he's told me, he really enjoys working there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he regularly goes out for drinks with them and attends social events, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm pretty introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his coworkers or work friends and have never asked to. I have my own group of friends, and I'm okay with us having our own separate circles. After what happened yesterday, it hit me that he never really asked if I wanted to meet any of them or attend any of his work events, which I guess is important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I've just been brushing off until now. I was at a bar with some friends having a few drinks after work on a Friday, and a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too. He looked vaguely familiar, but I'd never met him before. He seemed pretty friendly and asked, "Are you my name?" I guess I must have looked at him in a puzzled way because he continued, "I'm Jake, I work with Josh." I realized I recognized him from some pictures on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posts pictures anywhere, but we have a very trusting relationship, so I occasionally glance at his photos. Don't hate me. Here's where it got a bit awkward. I'm a little shy about socializing, so I tried to wrap up the conversation, but he kept talking to me. I guess he had a few beers already. But while talking, he said things like, "It's so nice you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in forever." At that point I was like, huh? But I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I brushed it off. He started getting a little flirty, so I turned back to my friends and we left soon after. I didn't mention it to them, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell Josh that I'd met his coworker Jake. Not to hide it, but because I thought the guy probably wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make Josh uncomfortable at work by telling him his coworker tried to flirt with me. I figured no harm, no foul. However, yesterday morning I was out walking our dog Monty. He's a mix of several breeds with very unique markings. I promise this is important, and was on my way to my usual coffee shop in town. I was in line waiting to order, and the guy in front of me was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around but stopped and looked at my dog and said, "Hey Monty." Monty seemed extremely excited to see him, so I guessed that this guy was another one of Josh's coworkers since Josh takes the dog to the office a few times a week. Honestly, I thought it was sweet, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself. I guessed correctly that he was a coworker, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister for walking the dog for him?" I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first and stammered out something like, "He's my dog." I'm sorry, but I really couldn't bring myself to correct him and say I'm Josh's wife, not his sister. It was too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think I suddenly realized what might be going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I managed to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he left. I really don't know what to do because what the hell? Do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me just wants to assume or hope that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work, and they assume we're related because we both have brown hair? But the thought that he might have told his coworkers I'm his sister, and clearly they've seen what I look like, so they must have seen pictures, makes my stomach twist. I don't even know how to bring this up to him. I need help. What would you do in this situation? I've only told one friend about what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she jumped straight to time to plan his downfall because she was the one with me. Love her, but I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that might be nothing. Sorry for the long and rambling post, but I really appreciate any advice. Edit. Oh my god, thank you to everyone who's commented and given advice. I haven't read everything yet, but I really appreciate the suggestions from you all. A small update. Josh came home at around 2:30 am last night, but he was drunk, so he just went to bed, which was fine by me because there's no point in talking in that state. I've just woken up, but he's still asleep. First thing I want to clarify. I've seen a lot of people assuming that I have severe social anxiety or am extremely introverted, which I guess you could gather from the way I explained what happened, but I don't. I mean, I'm a little introverted in that I'm not super eager to meet a ton of new people at once, especially a group of finance bros whose weekends are just endless sports bars where I'd probably misinterpret everything until my ears bleed, maybe a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you get what I mean. I guess you could say I'm non-confrontational, in that I'm pretty chill and like to keep a conversation easy and positive, I don't know. I just don't like it when things get awkward, and correcting people when they're wrong about me is one of those things, but I'm not afraid of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do have some mutual friends. I didn't make that clear, but our lives aren't completely separate. How he behaves around me with our mutual friends is super affectionate and normal. It's just his work friends that I've never met. I also see some people saying that what's going on is the equivalent of my husband hitting me and me hopelessly wondering if I should leave him or not. Or that I'm stupid to think my relationship is healthy when it's obviously not. Like, damn, cut me some slack. I'm a real person, and this is a completely foreign and weird situation to me. My first reaction isn't to assume the worst happened, but I do appreciate all of you making sure I realize this is a big deal. I guess I needed the validation that what's happened is enough evidence that Josh deliberately lied and that these aren't just misunderstandings. Today, I'm going to talk to him and straight up ask him why he told his coworkers I'm his sister. I took the advice of writing down my points so they don't get lost if I get emotional, lol. I'll try my best not to let him wiggle out of it, and I hope he has some proof that his coworkers know I'm his wife. I know it's not the stage confrontation you were all expecting, but today is Saturday, and I'm gearing up for it. Wish me luck, thank you all. Additional info from OOP. I didn't go into detail about our relationship because it seemed irrelevant, but I really do want to say that we have had a healthy and the best relationship I've ever been in. I was friends with him for years, and a bit before we started dating we met in college. I've had bad relationships before, and he really swept me off my feet when we started dating. He truly is the smartest, kindest, most empathetic man I've ever met. He remembers every little thing about me. He's sweet to me every single day and does small acts of service just to make my day better. And I'd do anything for him. We're really supportive of each other. We also have a great sex life and are regularly intimate, so I know he isn't craving that or anything. But that's why it's hard for me to assume the worst, because literally, right before going out last night, he made me dinner and told me he loves me like he always does. Like him living a double life seems impossible or realistic, you know? I can't even imagine it, and typing this out feels like I'm dreaming or talking about someone else. Update, August 18, 2024. Hi everyone, I just want to say thank you for the overwhelming support and advice. I'm really blown away, and it means so much and has really helped me stay grounded. I'm sorry for the slow update. I know many of you were invested in what happened. I really tried to update on Saturday, but it turns out this subreddit doesn't allow me to post an update until 48 hours after my original post. I'm also only allowed to post a single update, so I'll try to include as much as I can here. Sorry if it's long. I'll get straight to the point. On Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than my husband. He was still passed out from being drunk. But you'd all be proud of me because I followed some advice and decided to go through his phone while he was sleeping. I'm so used to his phone being around that I just get annoyed with it that I never thought to check it thoroughly. I know his passcode by heart. I checked all the expected things like his direct messages on Instagram, Facebook messages, his iMessages, etc. and I didn't find anything that immediately raised red flags. But from some of the comments, I knew that cheaters are very good at covering their tracks and hiding messages. So I kept looking around. I saw that he had a folder called Work, so I looked in there and saw that he had a few Microsoft apps, Outlook, Authenticator, OneNote, etc., but he also had MS Teams. So I opened it and started looking around. I felt like I was breaking the law by going through his work messages, but clearly I had to. Anyway, I was devastated to see that he had a lot of private conversations with a few female coworkers. This, at first glance, wasn't an obvious problem because people work with the opposite gender and are bound to communicate with them. But a few of them seemed vaguely flirty. I wouldn't call it overly serious. But there would be the occasional message between them with a few playful hints or a winking emoji. Obviously, this made me upset, and they sent me into a spiral, but I didn't find anything indicating he was having an obvious romantic relationship with any of them. However, I followed someone's suggestion to screenshot the messages and send them to myself. However, I still wanted some evidence of the lie. Some evidence that Josh directly told someone I'm his sister. Someone commented suggesting I search through his messages for the keyword sis. I wanted to reply to the comment and say thanks for the idea, but the post was locked, so I couldn't, but thank you. So I searched sis on his MS Teams, hoping to find results for both sister and sis. A ton of messages from general group chats or private conversations popped up from other people, all irrelevant and about their own sisters or whatever. But my heart dropped, lol, when I saw that there was a direct message from Jake, the guy at the bar, to Josh from a Monday a few months ago. Jake's message said, "Ran into your sister at bar on Friday? She's single?" And my husband had the audacity to reply, "Nah, she's married." I literally almost burst into flames on the spot seeing that. I can't even describe how shaky I was after reading those messages. First, I could have confronted Josh about this months ago. I was, and still am, so mad at myself for that. Josh must have been praying I didn't remember meeting Jake or wouldn't bring it up, and he would count his lucky stars that I never did. He probably thought he was so slick getting away with that, and I nearly burned a hole in the floor thinking about it, lol. But second, I'm just shocked that he would dare tell this guy that I'm married because he doesn't want anyone messing with me, but he's allowed to brazenly flirt with every damn woman in the office? Anyway, I kept going through the search results on his MS Teams, and eventually I scrolled back around 2 years ago and actually found a message from Josh himself in a group chat. It read, "Me and Sis in Nusadu." I clicked on it and saw that he sent it along with a bunch of pictures of him and me on our vacation in Bali. We went to Bali to celebrate our second wedding anniversary. I think he probably chose those photos because he wasn't wearing a shirt and was working out, so he looked very hot in all of them. I was literally in tears seeing all this. I also screenshotted those images and sent all those screenshots to myself. Needless to say, I was devastated and still am to have witnessed all this. I'm still struggling to even process it. But all that happened on Saturday morning, and I immediately drove myself over to my friend's place. I'll call her Sophie. I went over to hers to cry and show her what I found. She was extremely supportive and probably angrier than I was, lol. Around 1:30 p.m., I got a call from Josh, and I declined it right away. He sent me a few messages like, "Babe, where are you? I'm ordering food, want anything? Said I didn't wake up next to you this morning." Guys, I have to reiterate how much I love this man, and how heartbreaking it was to see him still acting like nothing happened. It took so much willpower not to pretend nothing had, and go home to him. I know some of you will yell at me, or accuse me of being afraid to confront him about this, but that's not true. Please have a little sympathy. I needed time to process my feelings, and I wouldn't have even been able to speak if I tried to confront him right after seeing those messages. I needed time away at Sophie's to collect myself, so I stayed at her place overnight. We ordered in Chinese and helped me plan how I'd confront him. I got more and more messages and calls from him as the evening went on, and eventually I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Sunday morning, I woke up feeling more angry than sad, so I opened my phone and finally replied to his message. Came home, we need to talk. Honestly, I kept it cryptic just to make him squirm. Because I was /him emotional, I can't remember the exact wording of the entire conversation, but I'll try my best to replay it. Basically, I got home and he tried to hug me, but I refused and we just stood in the kitchen. I confronted him like some people suggested. I just said, "Why did you tell your coworkers that I'm your sister?" I wish it was like a movie scene where his face went pale, or he instantly looked like a deer in headlights, but he didn't. It seemed like he'd been bracing himself for this confrontation for some time, because he just frowned at me and looked stunned. He just said, "Huh?" which made me very furious. How can you pretend to be stupid after 3 years of lying? I basically said, "Don't play dumb, 2 of your coworkers have greeted me as your sister, and I have proof that you told them. And I know you've been pretending to be single." I basically asked him what he had to say for himself. He still played dumb. He got moderately defensive and kept saying, "I don't know what you're talking about, or why would I lie about you?" I can't describe how furious I was at that moment, but I started crying. I always cry when I'm mad, so he tried to comfort me as if I was having some unreasonable meltdown. I showed him the screenshots of his messages that read "me" and "sis" and said things like, "You tell me." He just said, "I don't know what I'm looking at," and "I'm confused." I was so angry I walked out and drove back to Sophie's because it felt like a dead end. I didn't think I'd get him to admit to anything, and I became so furious that I couldn't continue. He was genuinely upset and started crying, which to me was proof that he knew he was lying and that he was going to have to come up with some kind of explanation. He tried to convince me to stay, but I told him that until he had something to say, we had nothing to talk about. At around 8:30, he called me again, and I answered. He basically asked that we talk and said he had some things to say, so I drove back to our apartment. He had written down a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper as if he prepared a speech and set me down on the couch. He asked me not to say anything while he was explaining. I'll bullet point the gist of what he said. He started by apologizing profusely and admitted that he pretended to be dumb earlier because he couldn't think of anything to say for himself on the spot. He said that shortly after starting his job, he realized it was a frat-like atmosphere. All the guys on his team are men in their 20s and 30s, single and fuckboys, his words. He noticed that one guy on their team who was married was either picked on or basically excluded from any and all social interactions, including lunch, internal chats, going out on Fridays, etc. These guys were super friendly and welcoming to Josh, and he admitted that he really wanted to fit in with them. He hated feeling like fresh meat. So he was scared that saying he was married would alienate him from his coworkers, and he never mentioned being married. He said that he wore his wedding ring, and they never pointed that out. A few months in, they all went out for drinks after work. He admitted that after one of his coworkers saw a picture of him and me on his lock screen, they asked who I was, and in a moment of panic, he said, "My sister." At this point, he was really sorry, and he was crying a lot, couldn't even look at me, just reading what he'd written down. Anyway, he said that from that point on, he basically dug himself deeper and deeper, because they kept asking him about me and wanting to see more pictures of me. He said he let this go on for too long, and he didn't have the balls to admit the lie. They would always bring me up and ask things like, "Have you given her my number yet?" or joke about having slept with me, etc. So when he got that message from Jake, he basically thought it was just him taking the piss, but he didn't like the jokes they were making about me and said I was married, hoping they would stop. They didn't. He said that wasn't the first time he told them I was married. He'd actually said that right after saying I was his sister. He said that the photos of us in Nusa Dua were the only photos he deliberately sent them and deliberately lied about, after what he called a barrage of pestering from his coworkers to share his vacation photos. He said he was really ashamed of doing that. He told me that he'd never cheated or even considered cheating. that the messages between him and his female coworkers were just banter, and that talking like that with people in the office is normal. He also said he knew it was gross, and he was ashamed of acting like a fuckboy. Again, his words. He ended his speech by apologizing again, saying he was disgusted with himself and ashamed for lying for so long, but felt like he'd been trapped and couldn't figure out a way out of it. He said he knew he could have come clean to his coworkers or me at any time, but he didn't because he was a coward. He said he'd confess the truth to the whole office, that he'd lie, and that I was his wife, not his sister, if I wanted. He said he'd quit his job without a word if that would make me feel better, and he hoped I could forgive him, but understood if I couldn't. Anyway, I really couldn't think of anything to say at that point. He locked himself in the bathroom, and I just sat on the couch crying. I still don't know if I can believe what he says, and the extremity of the lie baffles me. If he can lie about something like that for so long, what else can he lie about? But his explanation and apology seemed so sincere and genuine, and I guess on some level what he's saying is believable. He's always been extroverted but very susceptible to peer pressure, especially from other guys. If nothing else, it's a sign of shocking immaturity to me. Anyway, I packed my things and drove back to Sophie's, and I'm still at hers as I write this. She said I could stay as long as I need to. I told Josh I need time away from him to think everything through and whether I believe him or not, or if I can ever trust him again. He told me to take as long as I need and that he'll be there if or when I come back, he said, even if it takes a year. Nothing feels real right now. I'm still processing the emotional shock of all this, and I can't eat or think about anything. I've taken the day off work, and Josh said he'll take the whole week off. Sophie and my other friends have told me not to make a decision about anything until my head is clear. I talked to my parents this morning, and my mom said it was just a bump in the road, but she and my dad love Josh, so they're pretty biased, lol. That's where I'm at right now. I'll take some time before considering my next steps. I can't say if I'm leaning toward forgiveness or divorce, but those are really the only options. I feel like I'm in a void right now. That's probably the best way to describe it, just emptiness. Thank you again for all your advice and support. I'm really grateful, and having this space to write out all my thoughts has helped clear my head a bit. This will be my final update, unless I edit to clarify anything. All the best.